Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Ready, Set, Scale webinar today on evolving state energy efficiency portfolios. My name is Erin Cosgrove. I am the Director of Policy and Programs at NEEP, and I will just be doing some quick introductions before we get into our discussion today. So next slide, please. Excellent. Just a few things to note as people are coming in. First off is the webinar is being recorded, and we'll share this webinar on our website after today. And also, we have enabled closed captioning to the control to disable this feature is in the lower right corner of Zoom. Just for all attendees, a reminder that all lines will remain on mute during this webinar, but we have two ways for you to interact with the host and the other attendees. First, we have a Q&A session, we have a Q&A panel open for the Zoom webinar. Please feel free to add questions into that at any moment in time. I will be leading the Q&A, so I will be looking at it and taking your questions as we continue. And then also chat is available for comments, discussion, and collaboration. So please feel free to use that to talk to the other participants. And finally, just an antitrust statement. Participants shall comply with competition law requirements and shall not enter into any discussion, activity, or contact that may violate any applicable competition law. And with that, next slide, please. So first, just a little introduction on NEEP. So NEEP, or Northeast Energy Efficiency Partnerships, is a nonprofit organization founded in 1996. We're one of 6 regional energy efficiency organizations, or RIOs. We have sister counterparts in the Midwest, the Northwest, the Southwest, and the Southeast, as well as in Central. Also, we envision the region's homes, buildings, businesses, and communities transformed into efficient, affordable, low carbon, and resilient places to live, work, and play. And we really seek to drive regional collaboration and best practices in energy efficiency so the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic region can lower energy bills, reduce carbon pollution, create jobs, and improve energy and climate resilience. Next slide, please. And then before we get started, I just want to do a huge thank you to all of our funders. First, on this slide, we have all of the foundations that pay for our great work at NEEP and help us and enable us to do things like this webinar. Slide. And on this slide here is all of our wonderful allies. So thank you so much for being part of our allies network. And then finally, on this slide, we have all of our state partners, and we've noted who the state partners are within those states. As you can see, we have a lot of state partnerships all across the region. Next slide, please. Excellent. As my executive director, Maggie, comes on, I'll just give a quick overview of the summary for today's Ready, Set, Scale webinar. So as we know, over the past year, states across the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic have been reshaping their energy efficiency portfolios in varied and very thoughtful ways, some meeting the status quo, others adopting distinct and new approaches. And these states are designing and also beginning to implement IRA Home Energy Rebates. So today, we're really excited to shine a spotlight on New Jersey and all of their transition, but also just talk about how efficiency portfolios have really been evolving over the past year. And with that, I'll pass it over to Maggie for some stage setting.
Sounds good. Thank you, Erin, and good morning, everyone. It's great to be with you this morning. I'm Maggie Molina. I'm Executive Director of NEEP, and really pleased to have some time this morning to talk about the evolution and the growth of energy efficiency programs in the region. Really excited to feature New Jersey BPU's work and have them here to tell that story of the good work in New Jersey. As Erin said, there has been a lot of evolution, and that's what we'll be spending the most of our time this morning. And I wanted to start with kind of some enduring themes, how energy efficiency has been a durable resource strategy for a regional economy. I thought that might be a helpful stage setting as we're talking about the evolving nature, some of the new innovative things happening. It's also important to remember some of the foundational aspects of energy efficiency that allow us to then pivot. So I wanted to just briefly touch on 3 key themes for energy efficiency in our region. First, on energy efficiency as a job creator, how It's a important employment sector in the region. Then touch on efficiency as a resource to the regional energy system. And then third, energy efficiency for affordability, which is really critical, especially now with rising energy prices. So let me jump in first. Next slide, I will share a little information about the latest data on jobs. This is a national view. There's a new report or an updated report. The report's been published by DOE for several years now. And a couple of weeks ago, the latest version of this report was issued, the US Energy and Employment Report. Check it out. Again, the report found that energy efficiency is the largest source of energy employment in the US. So looking across all of the energy sectors, energy efficiency, again, is contributing to the largest share, employing nearly 2.4 million workers across the country. This, just to put that in perspective, this is more than twice as many workers as the entire US fuels and power generation sectors combined. Efficiency is also the fastest growing sector of the energy jobs sectors. As you can see, traditional HVAC, there's some helpful information in the report about what types of workers. Traditional HVAC employed nearly 26% of the energy efficiency sector, but there's a lot of diverse types of jobs, local jobs that are really important to our regional economy. And these are jobs that pay relatively well, at least compared to the US median wage levels as well. There's going to be a follow-up report that will look at state by state energy efficiency jobs. NEEP will be taking a look at that, but I expect to see the same theme as in the past, that in our region, most states are finding that energy efficiency is making up the largest energy sector job sectors. All right, next slide. So that's on efficiency, as a bedrock employment sector. Efficiency is also a longstanding resource to our regional energy systems. So this is a look at budgets for energy efficiency portfolios in 3 large states in our region. And so Massachusetts, New York, and New Jersey, these are states that make multi-year commitments to energy efficiency. And that's important to have these multi-year commitments to efficiency as a resource. And they, again, pleased to have New Jersey tell us more about what's happening in their state. And in the longer, New York makes a 5-year commitment, so that's why you can see the data for New York, but we expect to continue to see multi-year commitments from other states. If just adding up these 3 states, this is about $4 billion per year investments in energy efficiency and related strategies. Building decarbonization, electrification. Some states count demand flexibility in their portfolios, others don't. So there's a little bit of apples and oranges, but NEEP is going to be continuing to look at and track these key metrics of energy efficiency as a resource for the region. But it's really one of those bedrock principles that enable us to then evolve and pivot to some new opportunities for energy efficiency to do even more for the region, to help meet climate goals, to pair up with demand flexibility, to serve as a resource when the grid needs it most. All right, so that's efficiency as a resource in the 3 largest states. The next slide provides a little more information on efficiency budgets in some other states. So those are the kind of big 3. We get to the billions of dollars. In the other states, collectively combined, this doesn't include all of the NEEP states, but most of them, collectively another $1.5 billion per year investments in efficiency and, again, related strategies as well. The orange line shows per capita, so just gives you a quick sense of investments relative to population, and you'll see that typically varies ranges from about $60 per capita to $120 per capita in these states, with Pennsylvania lower than the rest of the state. So the investments certainly vary by state in our region, but by and large, our region is making significant commitments to efficiency as a resource. All right, and the third key theme, affordability. I expect Erin and Stacy will be touching on these three themes as well. If we can go to the next slide, I just wanted to share a view of energy burdens. This is some data, several years old at this point from ACEEE, but I thought it would be helpful to share and just remind ourselves of when we're talking about energy efficiency and the evolving nature of these programs, that one of the key strategies and customer segments that we're looking to serve are households that are facing high energy burdens. And this one report looked at rural households, but we see similar themes in the urban household energy burden studies, that households are facing in the Northeast some of the highest energy burdens in the country. And a large driver of this is the cost of fuel oil. Heating costs in the Northeast region are high, and energy efficiency programs have made a lot of progress, but there is still a lot to do to serve households. And again, as I said earlier, especially now with rising energy prices, rising bills, we'll need efficiency to do even more to serve these households and help bring energy bills down by bringing use down and reducing energy waste. So again, efficiency has been a very durable regional energy strategy, and we are going to need it to do even more. And that's where policy innovation comes in, program innovation, and we're very excited to be partnering and working with states like New Jersey and others throughout the region that are innovating and bringing in federal resources where we can. I know we'll talk about the IRA programs and how we can leverage those the best we can, even amidst some of the uncertainty that we're all facing with the federal resources, but still ample room for innovation and partnerships to make these programs do even more. So building on these bedrock durable principles of energy efficiency for the region. So I hope that was helpful stage setting. Erin, thank you for your work, working with states across the region and partnering with states like New Jersey. Really looking forward to the conversation this morning.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Maggie. And then before I invite Stacy on, I would just like to give a quick overview of what we're seeing in New Jersey. So next slide, please. Excellent. So this is a timeline, and I will be queuing up questions somewhat along this timeline, but just so everyone on the webinar is kind of level set on all the exciting and great things and all the movement that we've seen in New Jersey, I just wanted to walk through what's on the slide here in front of us. So New Jersey really kicked off investing in energy efficiency and evolving their energy efficiency programs with the passage of the Clean Energy Act in 2018. This act established statewide energy efficiency programs with separate electric and gas savings goals and also performance-based incentives. The act also created an initiative to start benchmarking in the state. In addition to energy efficiency programs, we're also seeing New Jersey invest a lot in benchmarking and building performance standards, which I'll talk about in a little bit. So after passage of the Clean Energy Act in 2018, New Jersey established Triennium 1 of their statewide energy efficiency programs in 2020. And this Triennium 1 established statewide co-run utility and state energy efficiency programs. Was the first time that all of the utilities across New Jersey implemented core programs, so every resident could access the same programs. It also established energy saving goals and performance incentives for all of the utilities, created a New Jersey cost test, and established workforce and equity working groups, which we'll hear about some recommendations from those today. In 2021, New Jersey established a whole home pilot program, which piloted a whole house approach to addressing health and safety hazards and implementing energy efficiency programs. This program braided funding from existing programs already on the ground in New Jersey and initiated a pilot in Trenton. And it was also modeled after the Philadelphia Built to Last initiative from the neighboring state of Pennsylvania. In 2023, we saw Governor Phil Murphy sign Executive Order 316, and this created electrification and building decarbonization goals for residential and commercial buildings. So by 2030, 400,000 residential and 20,000 commercial buildings would be electrified, and that's including heat pumps and heat pump water heaters. It also created a goal that 10% of these homes or an additional 10% of low income buildings would be made electrification ready. So looking to electrify and then also looking to lay the groundwork to make sure that the work continues after 2030. Executive Order 2030 also created voluntary building performance standards for New Jersey. And I believe this was the first state where we've seen the creation of these voluntary building performance standards, whereas in other states they're mandatory and I believe little and come with fees. And then in 2024, New Jersey created Triennium 2, which is the second round of their energy efficiency program. So building off of all of the work in Triennium 1. In these programs, we saw the BPU introduce building decarbonization pilots, and they very intentionally added that these pilots be used to inform Triennium 3. They also established demand response programs and initiated creation of a central statewide platform or one-stop shop for residents from the energy efficiency programs. And then coming up to 2025, we have the IRA Home Energy Rebates that New Jersey is now getting ready to implement. And they have two very great programs stemming from both of these. First, the IRA Homes program will be funding a program called MRISE, which will be a whole building energy efficiency program for low income multifamily homes. And then the HERE funding will be funding upgrades to electrical panels and wiring for low residents converting to efficient electric appliances. And then in addition to implementing the IRA rebates this year, New Jersey has started to talk about Triennium 3 and planning for that. So with this quick update, I am excited to now invite Stacy Richardson from the New Jersey BPU to join me on screen. And I am going to ask Stacy some questions about the history and the forward looking for the New Jersey BPU. Hello, Stacy. So nice to have you. I was wondering if you wanted to do a quick introduction for the attendees.
Sure. Thanks, Erin. Thanks, NEEP. Stacey Ho Richardson. I'm a Deputy Director in the Division of Clean Energy at the New Jersey Board of Public Utilities. Thanks so much for having me on. Thanks for that context. Yeah, happy to have this conversation today.
Excellent, thank you. And I will kick us off with questions, but just remind all of the attendees to please use the Q&A feature if you have any questions that you would like to add to the discussion. So first, Stacy, just kind of looking at the history of the New Jersey energy efficiency programs. We know New Jersey has been implementing energy efficiency programs at the state level and through utilities enabled by RGGI legislation prior to Triennium 1. But with the passage of the Clean Energy Act, the state stood up for the first time statewide co-run programs. As a result of this, I'm curious if you could talk about what are some of the biggest changes that occurred in the programs and how the new format has really generated more investment in energy efficiency in the state.
Sure. Yeah, as you noted, the Clean Energy Act was a really big piece of legislation for energy efficiency and for other clean energy initiatives in New Jersey, setting 2% annual reduction targets for electricity and 0.75% for natural gas within 5 years of implementation of these programs. And so what happened as a result of that legislation was to move to have all the utilities participate, as you noted, to offer these programs, and they basically are covering all the existing buildings. Incentives, financial incentives, and then the state retained the new construction incentive program, and a handful of other programs, for example, local government energy audits. And the utilities and the state are co-administering our low-income EE program, which is called Comfort Partners. So it really, because of that, that resource standard that was set, we saw a significant increase in investment in energy efficiency starting in 2020.
Right.
And
And to add,
and as you noted, we really wanted to have sort of consistent set of offerings throughout the state, and so did a lot of coordination with the utilities on that.
mhm. Yes, true. And then just to add a little bit more context, I forgot to highlight this point in my introduction, but I believe the ACEEE scorecard that came out, New Jersey was in the top 10 for the first time since 2008. So we've seen amazing savings and investment as a response to these programs. Um, For my second question, I'll pivot over to building decarbonization. So in Triennium 2, moving into the next phase, we saw New Jersey implement building decarb programs to run as pilots and inform full programs in Triennium 3. For these programs, the state established fuel neutral MMBTU savings metrics. Just for the audience, I think there's two ways states can go about doing this, either through fuel neutral MMBTU metrics or adopting a GHG savings metric. And through the fuel neutral MMBTU metrics, New Jersey enabled it so that both electric and gas utilities could claim savings from oil and propane conversions. So I have two questions for you on this, Stacy. First, I was wondering if you could discuss a little bit how the state chose a fuel neutral MMBTU as the metric compared to GHG emissions.
It was really connected to our legislation. So the Clean Energy Act, since it specifically called for electricity reductions and gas reductions, it didn't contemplate greenhouse gas reductions. It didn't contemplate explicitly, moving from fuel switching. So we have kept the energy efficiency, metrics at the forefront. The primary metrics are fuel specific reductions, but because we're going to be seeing, overall energy consumption reduction as a result of the fuel switching in BD, we are also tracking the greenhouse gas reductions. That it's really each state, of course, has its own enabling legislation. So that is a function of our own legislation.
Yes, thank you. And yeah, my second part was just how the state determined to allow electric and gas utilities to claim savings. I think, yeah, if you could talk a little bit more about how you really focused on energy savings and then the thought process for allowing fuel conversions for both of those.
Yeah, so because are using a fuel neutral approach, then the implementing utility, whether it's an electric utility or gas utility, can claim the overall fuel savings that result from these BD projects. And that way, they don't have to separate the electric and the gas savings.
Great, thank you. And yeah, it's such a I want to say there's many states doing approaching this many different ways, but it's really great to see New Jersey really highlighting the efficiency of these conversions and focusing on the total energy reduction that results from them. Excellent. And with that, we'll now pivot over to demand response and distributed energy resources. So in both Triennium 2 and Triennium 1, New Jersey has kind of explored offering demand response programs. I'm wondering if you could discuss a little bit about how you're seeing demand response programs fit into the energy efficiency portfolio and any barriers or major successes you've seen in trying to implement demand response programs alongside energy efficiency.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big movement that we made in Triennium 2 was not only the overall expansion of investment in energy efficiency, but also building decarb startup programs for the first time and demand response programs for the first time. We are just kind of getting started on demand response and demand flexibility. Of course, as we have all seen in terms of, the rising electricity rates and the peak demand times becoming more and more important that we, manage those. We see that the importance of continuing to sort of future-proof our demand flexibility initiatives so that there are standards associated with the programs. There are the equipment, the appliances, et cetera, are all enabled in terms of technology to be able to have that demand flexibility conversation, so to speak. And so that there can be aggregation, in the future. There, perhaps registries and, platforms that could be that could also be, could be private, private sector. But it all should be sort of portable, flexible, universal, so that it's not only the domain of the utilities, but something that can be sort of tapped into as a future resource. So, we're thinking now during our Triennium 3 planning about what the overall demand response roadmap, so to speak, looks like, and what we can accomplish in Triennium 3, and what kind of parameters we can put in place so that there is an ability to sort of fully maximize the opportunity in the future.
Great. Yeah. And I like how you thought about how we can start to implement programs now and then what future proofing can happen to ensure the technology is there. And then also that these networks are able to be tapped into from both utilities and third parties, which I think is another important topic that we're seeing come up in our research with NEEP. I will just remind all attendees, if you have any questions that come up as I'm talking to Stacy, to please add them to the chat, but I will continue through my discussion point, through all of the questions that I have for Stacy. So next, I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about equity and how New Jersey has been driving equity in the energy efficiency programs. In my introduction, I mentioned in Triennium 1, there was the creation of the Equity Working Group. New Jersey's also has the Comfort Partners program and saw significant expansion and enhancement of incentives for low income in Triennium 2. So I'm curious, Stacy, if you could talk a little bit about like what you've seen, what has had the most success as you're trying to think about equity and program implementation in the energy efficiency space, and kind of what programs you think have expanded the ability for low income residents to participate out of all of the efforts.
Mm-hmm. So I will talk a little bit about low income and then moderate income. So we have a specific program called Comfort Partners for low income residents, homeowners and renters. That program is jointly administered by the utilities and the state. So it's funded by the state, and it's so the utilities take all 7 public utilities take on the day-to-day administration of the program, and those energy efficiency improvements are offered at no cost to the residents. We have, I think we're going to talk about IRA later, but there's opportunities within that program, to expand the offerings, which I'll talk about later. But then the utilities have, as part of their portfolios, their core programs all offer moderate income EE programs. So we designed it so that where the income threshold for Comfort Partners leaves off, the moderate income threshold of those programs starts, so that there's a continuity there. Currently is up to 400% of the federal poverty level, from 200 to 400%. And we're, thinking about how to possibly make changes to the income. Could it be area median income? Could it be something else? So that it's maybe even New Jersey specific. So I think where we have seen some success is in some efforts such as geography-based eligibility. So we have overburdened communities that have been designated by the New Jersey Environmental Justice Law. Those overburdened communities are determined by 3 factors: language, race, and income. And so when a resident is in one of those overburdened communities, they can sort of be automatically eligible for for a moderate income program if they can self-attest that they do fall within that eligibility range, income eligibility. So it's the idea to design it to make it a lot easier for people to participate and to reduce some of that administrative, hassle of participating. And we've seen some good success there in terms of, increased participation. Of course, I think some of the barriers may be awareness still. Overall, I think in general for energy efficiency and building decarb, there's an opportunity to increase awareness by customers about these opportunities, to make it easier for them to participate, to make it, something that we can do for them, so that because everyone has busy lives and a lot of other priorities. So how do we make it easy and for them to fit it in basically to their lives and to their schedules, including some of the more potentially disruptive work, right, that you could do on buildings, in terms of say insulation, um, but also the awareness about all the benefits of to their homes, to their bills, and then also to comfort, but also for in terms of electrification if they're good candidates for that. So, I think also some of the barriers still remain in terms of renters trying to get more access to the renters, and more conversations with landlords too, so they can be supportive of some of these improvements. So hopefully that answered your question. If I missed anything, let me know.
Oh, no, that was great. And yeah, I think the geographical attestation, I'm going to call it geographic attestation, but I'm sure there's a better phrase for it. But I think that's a great feature to highlight of the New Jersey programs, especially for other states that might be wondering how to just enable participation.
Oh, actually, if I could
Oh,
just
yes.
add to that really quickly. Also, there's if they're already enrolled in another income qualifying program, then they can be automatically eligible for these EE programs. It's a similar idea, right? To make it easy so they don't have to, if they've already gone through the process of doing all the paperwork, then they don't have to do it again.
Exactly. Yep. So yes, definitely a great feature to highlight. If I was gonna say, my next question was wondering, because I know the state just had a 2-day workshop on Triennium 3, trying to kind of explore and get all ideas in the room. Wondering if anything came up in the way of low and moderate income programs in Triennium 3. Um, Anything you're excited to see the state try out in the next round?
I think there are opportunities to achieve deeper savings
Hmm.
in low and moderate income homes. They do tend to be older, um, less efficient, and there's not, I think, as much of an awareness about electrification. What it could look like, feel like, what the experience will be with, say, electric heating. So, I think that I came from where I come to this energy efficiency work is I used to work for an organization whose mission was to build an inclusive green economy strong enough to lift people out of poverty. And I think that's still with me every day in terms of this energy transition, really making sure that we not only make sure we serve all the low and moderate income households and businesses, but also try to put them at the forefront of the benefits. So I think that we continue to keep that in our minds about making sure that we're thinking about them first. And we'll continue to do that in our Triennium 3 planning.
Yes, definitely. I think that's a, a key goal or objective to always keep in mind is to make sure that we're serving low income and moderate income households first and foremost, and enabling them to access the benefits of these programs so that they can be lifted up and enjoy and see the benefits and the savings just as much as other participants in the state. I did not prep you for this question, but kind of wondering while we're on the theme of equity and affordability, heat pump rate design has definitely been something coming up in a lot of states in our region, looking at looking at how rates can be designed to encourage electrification and then also to make sure um, winter bills are lower and don't increase energy burden for conversions. I'm kind of curious if you would be willing to share a little on how New Jersey might be looking at heat pump rates or how you're seeing them in the overall vision for building decarbonization in the state.
Yeah, we are starting to look at this. There are a couple base rate cases that have have been filed, and that are underway at the BPU. And we're looking, I think, at the cost of serving, heat pump customers, and seeing what would make sense in terms of of an equitable, so to speak, rate for those customers that is in keeping with the cost of serving those customers. Um, what I've seen so far indicates that it costs less to serve heat pump customers, so it would make sense to correspondingly reduce their rates. So we are looking at that and considering, options, whether it's There's some shorter term options that could include heat pump credits while we gain more data. But there's also the option of kind of diving into a heat pump rate where we do have enough information about the customers and the cost of service. So that, yes, so that for the purpose of, like you said, making it more affordable for those who are heating in the winter.
Yes, that's great to hear. And I know a lot of states are also looking at that. I will do a shameless plug now just to highlight that NEEP will have a report on heat pump rates coming out in November. So keep an eye out for that. And Stacy will be sure to touch base with you to see how we can be helpful as you explore this. And with that, I will pivot to my next topic, which is market transformation. This really stemmed from the Triennium 3 workshop that you had, Stacy. But we know energy efficiency programs look to drive the market to learn about and adopt new technology. And Triennium 3 provides an opportunity to kind of grow on past successes the state has seen and implement programs that are looking to access and enable the adoption of both weatherization and heat pumps more. Kind of wondering how you're defining or wanting to see market transformation occur in Triennium 3 and maybe what programs or maybe other policies you're looking to or excited to explore to unlock some more market transformation.
Yeah, thanks for the question. If you think about the entire market and all the different segments, from the receiving end, the customer, and even the contractor, if we've been thinking of them as more downstream, and then more at the midstream level, we think about the trade ally networks or associations, contractor associations, and retailers. And then at the sort of the upstream level, we've been thinking about manufacturers and distributors. So if we can all be in sync in a way, more in sync about what we're trying to achieve and our goals and how to work together, then we think we can more effectively reach our market transformation goals more quickly. So in Triennium 1 and continuing to Triennium 2, we've had certain aspects of market transformation strategies already present. We do talk to, of course, contractor associations. We have great organizations like the Energy Efficiency Alliance of New Jersey and Kia in Pennsylvania that have been great participants in our programs, including as interveners, and other associations like that. But we think there's more opportunity in Triennium 3 to essentially find ways to not, as my director likes to call it, not throw money at everything, but find ways to leverage market transformation with non-financial strategies. So that could include having conversations with distributors and manufacturers to say, here are the things we would love to see if you can do those things. Like say you have more of the demand flexibility capability of equipment, for example. If that can be more possible, then we would love to lift them up, those entities up to say, through say, earned media, so to speak, or positive press or things like that to really highlight the good work that they're doing. And similarly with contractor associations or retailers, just kind of having those sort of a meeting of the mind and listening to each other say, what do we have in common? What can we achieve together? And in that way, have more alignment. We think that those efforts, through those efforts, it could be more intentional, perhaps, about achieving our goals. And so, as part of this contract, I should just mention that we've talked about free riders in the past, but when you have a free rider purchasing something and getting a rebate for it, even when they would have bought it without the rebate, that free rider actually becomes an important market signal. Send an important market signal that's something that we want to see. So it's actually it can become part of the overall plan or overall approach. So that's kind of how we've been thinking about it. It does affect, how much energy savings we could claim overall as part of our, overall efforts. So it's a little bit different. I think we're going in a slightly different direction in Triennium 3 so far in terms of our earlier discussions than in the past. But we think we're pretty excited about it.
Yes, it's I don't want to say you've like hit the market, but we've seen the consumer incentives go out the door and they've done their work. But now like let's look
Mhm.
at how we can create a market lift and how we can like unlock opportunity in all these different channels, from
Mhm.
distributors to contractors, manufacturers. So
Mhm. Think of those
yes.
relationships between them, where there's more
Mhm.
trainings that the distributors have, or that we connect those with the contractors, et cetera, and just have, more of those connections between all those different players.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's, yeah. And how we transform the market. But yeah, I think, as you said, it'll make a difference in both program design and then what you're measuring and what kind of changes you're looking for when you see the results of the program.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
Great. That leads me into my next topic, which was workforce.
Mm.
So you mentioned trainings with contractors and distributors, as potential new programs for Triennium 3. We know or New Jersey has had a workforce working group since Triennium 1. There's workforce trainings within the utilities and across the state, but kind of wondering if you could talk a little bit more about how you see the role of contractors in market transformation and adoption of technology, and um, if you have a vision for maybe what you'd like to see in Triennium 3, or what you think is working really well, with contractors in
Mhm.
the existing program.
Mhm. I think I guess two of the themes that have been really strong for me recently is awareness and education on the one hand, and also trust on the other. I think trusted relationships, who can people trust these days, and who do they trust to get work done, for them, or the advice or recommendations that they're getting, can they trust them? And I think the contractors play such an important role, potentially, in that as a trusted advisor, along with utilities, for example. But the more that we can have that alignment with our contractors to say, for example, assessing all the opportunities in the building and then providing all those options to the customer and letting them choose, of these things, which do you want to go forward with? What are the implications or, expected impacts of those improvements, and getting them as informed as possible. I think that's a lot of what the contractors will be doing or are doing in some cases. We are trying, in terms of the workforce development, we've kind of pivoted a bit from the working group, the EE Workforce Development Working Group, to a larger effort with the New Jersey Department of Labor, and New Jersey Institute of Technology and other state agencies, including the Economic Development Authority, and bringing in employers and trainers and supporting community organizations to think about the workforce ecosystem more as a whole, and to really understand first, what are the forecasts for EE jobs? What are the different kinds of jobs that are going to be needed over what period of time? How can we plan as a sort of a market, as an industry, for that growth in EE? And what do the employers need? Really focusing on that, so that it then sort of, I guess, trickles down in a way, or we take what the employers need and use that to inform what are the trainings that are needed, and then how, what kind of recruits, how many, can do we want to plan for and support with, say, workforce, wraparound service effort is called the Business and Industry Leadership Team, or BUILT, that, I know that, NEEP has also been participating in, which has been great. But it's kind of, expanded from a smaller kind of effort from just led by BPU. So really excited about that. And my colleague Indrani Powell has been really driving that, for the BPU. But again, I guess going back to the contractors, um, we want to really understand their needs, and it's sometimes hard, I think, for contractors to participate in all of these conversations because they're busy doing the work, trying to find more business, or do the work. So, um, you know, but that is our focus.
Mhm.
And then also when you think about things like on the job training, or workplace work. What am I saying? WBL, work based learning, or workplace
Yes.
based learning. Um, we think there's a great opportunity to take those who have graduated, or have earned achieve certain training levels, to then do hands-on work, with the employers, and potentially get employed, full time, and have careers with those employers.
Hmm. Yes, no, I think that's a great approach, and also a great, I think, a kind of a not a different, but an added a newer way to approach workforce. I'm trying to think of how to differentiate this, but we've seen a lot of states in the NEEP region. They have contractor networks that offer trainings and certify contractors, which is a great practice. But New Jersey, in addition, is also making sure that all of the parties that touch the workforce chain are involved, and that's great. And
Mhm.
then um, and I think I can recall back when PSE&G started, like their workforce program, I think it was a novel idea to get in touch with the companies to then establish how many trainees were actually going to be needed so that when workers went through the trainings, they knew they were going to have a job at the end. And that is also
Mhm.
just an excellent approach. And it's amazing to see New Jersey take that to the state level. And it's, I think, a way to just create even more lasting kind of workforce channels and opportunities for contractors throughout the state.
Mhm. Yeah, we really want to know what we can do to support what kind of resources contractors need. The Energy Master Plan called for a clean buildings hub, for example, for clean buildings professionals, not only contractors, but architects, engineers, and other clean buildings professionals. So it could potentially be something that we're working towards. It could be a repository of all trainings and other resources for contractors and others. Like, for example,
Yes.
is some kind of centralized way of communicating and providing resources.
Yes, and yeah, also great to highlight the needs for codes workforce and engineers and others. It's
Absolutely,
not just
yes.
heat pumps, but everybody
Code
in the
official,
workforce.
yeah. Hmm.
Excellent. I will do one more plug for any questions from the audience before we dive into our last topic, which is IRA implementation. So please feel free to add any questions, everyone. But now we're going to step into the opportunity that is the IRA rebates program in New Jersey, specifically learning a little bit more about what New Jersey's been doing. And as my colleague just showed, we have a nice new tracker on the NEEP website um, to show where all states are in approving their IRA Home Energy Rebates program. So as you can see here, and also in the blog, which we'll put in the chat, we have a breakdown of what's happening in each state. So for New Jersey, actually, and I might just pass this over to you, Stacey, to talk about
Hmm.
the two different buckets, but I'm wondering if you could first, we'll talk about HERE funding. So wondering if you want to give a summary of what you're thinking with HERE, and would love to hear about how you decided to prioritize these measures, because I think you're really honing in on barriers for low income communities with HERE
Hmm.
programs.
Yeah, if you take we are planning to use here funding in two areas. Um, One is to enhance the existing Comfort Partners program. So it's kind of getting back to what we were talking about earlier. To, as you noted, provide opportunities for panel upgrades and wiring for low-income residents, but also for delivered fuels and electric resistance customers, also offering heat pumps. So that is something that we are looking to expand and launch by the end of this year. That's called our Comfort Partners Here, or CP Here for short, effort. And then we're also looking at multifamily, where Comfort Partners sort of leaves off again, the idea of trying to make these programs complementary. Comfort Partners typically mostly serves um, buildings with up to about 6 units or so. So if you take, we're thinking about using the remainder of the HERE funding as well as the homes funding to serve garden style up to mid-rise and even high-rise multifamily buildings, and to offer both efficiency and electrification measures as part of a holistic approach to those buildings. And those would be LMI, so those would be at least 50% low or moderate income. Um, for MRIs, as what we call it.
Mhm.
And then, of course, Comfort Partners is all low income. So that's our general approach for those two programs. We do have, our we're bringing on a program administrator and expecting to launch both programs by the end of this year. And then once we launch them, then we'll start, assessing what these projects could look like, and then I think the funds will start flowing to New Jersey for reimbursement.
Excellent. Going back to when you mentioned that you'll be providing electric panel upgrades and wiring to low-income residents through here, will that be a component of the Comfort Partners program? Was
Yes,
that
it will be.
because you noticed it was a barrier when you
That
implemented?
is, yeah, that is not, it's not currently being done, basically. It's just
Mhm.
energy efficiency. So it's just a gap or an opportunity that we can address through the HERE funding.
Yeah, so just learned a lot about the barriers to actually including panel upgrades and but how much they're needed in homes throughout the region and
Yes.
their cost upgrades as well.
Yes, and it kind of goes back to what you were talking about with the EO 316 and readiness, you
Mhm.
know, putting in those, making those upgrades and for panels and wiring, whether it's to actually get the electrification done or to at least get them ready for when they are, a good candidate to proceed.
And then I think my final question was just more focused on MRIs because I understand there are some multifamily programs in the state through Triennium 2 and the energy efficiency programs, but wondering how you see that be additive or either create a whole new program to specifically address affordable multifamily housing in the state.
Yeah, thanks for asking that question. The reason we designed, I guess, or designing this program Rise is because we think there is we would like this for the state to stand something up that could be potentially a model for the utilities to take over in the future. So that's one area, because just because multifamily, especially of the larger that they get, the sort of more challenging, more complicated they are to serve, and so we want to kind of sort of be a trailblazer and set some kind of models in place that would be easier to follow. In terms of complementariness, we anticipate working with utilities to leverage as many of their rebates that they would offer to those customers as possible, and then stacking on top of that the federal IRA rebates, so that we can get the maximum kind of resources to those buildings as possible.
Excellent. And I like the idea of using the state energy office to pilot new and innovative approaches
Mhm.
just for that. So that'll be very exciting to see. Excellent. I believe that finishes all the questions that I had for you today, Stacy. So I want to just thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us and to debrief everyone on all of the wonderful advancements New Jersey has made in energy efficiency. Excited for Triennium 3 and the planning for that to continue. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you again so much for the thoughtful questions and for this opportunity to talk. Hopefully, it's been helpful to the audience and available to answer any follow-up questions in the future.
Thank you. Excellent. With that, I was gonna say, I believe we have an event coming up in New Jersey that I'll be finishing up with. But first, I am going to once again pitch that we have a new NEEP IRA Home Energy Rebates blog. As I mentioned earlier, this is tracking all of the states in the NEEP region and also includes a breakdown of the program designs for the different states and what timelines are available. Um, so please check that out and let us know if we can update it, and we'll be sure to keep it updated throughout the year as we can. Next slide, please. And finally, speaking of New Jersey, would like to remind everyone that coming up on October 20th, we have our heating electrification workshop in Princeton, New Jersey. So we can continue this wonderful discussion with Stacy and her colleagues, who I'm sure will be there, and also talk a lot about heating electrification advancements. And with that, I would like to thank you all for attending this Ready, Set, Scale webinar. Please feel free to shoot myself an email, or if you have any questions for Stacy, I can also direct the questions over to her. And once again, Stacy, thank you for giving us your time and your insight. And hopefully I will see you all in Princeton in October.